sessions?
Yeah, I'll just turn it over to Andrew.
Well, great. Well, so the Educational Sessions group has met and put together a call for proposals. And so we're really excited to get this rolling out. And so wanted to sort of enlist everyone's help as we get rolling into this process to start essentially utilizing all of our networks and figure out how we can best get the word out so that we have a really strong, diverse pool of folks that submit proposals for the conference. So really just wanted to take some time and talk about, I guess, kind of crowdsource, the different ways in which we want to get the word out and some of the more specific avenues. A lot of what we as a subcommittee have talked about so far is, hitting up places like social media, between Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, working within NASPA, specifically within like some of the KC and advisory board capacities to get the word out, as well as taking advantage of different listservs like SJTI, different grad resource or listservs as well from different graduate programs. So just as kind of an example of a couple things that we talked about, but I wanted to kind of put a call out for folks today to, like I said before, crowdsource where it is that we want to get the word out on and enlist help on folks being different points of contact for different, I guess, avenues of approach, if that makes sense. And so for the group, what are some of the places that we want to make sure we get the word out to for the call for proposals once this is posted?
Hello, this is Joseph. So we have talked about this as the recruitment, marketing, and registration subcommittee. So we talked a lot about social media through the various Facebook groups, our different listservs that we might be on through our various networks, the regional conferences coming up, making sure that they have at least the flyers that are in process of being made to make sure that those people at the regional conferences know that the conference is coming, but also the call for proposals is out there. As, for example, 4 East, they're publicizing every day the regional conference that's coming up next month. So, and the chair of the conference actually works here in Minnesota. So me and her had coffee today, and she was like, whenever y'all have the final flyer ready for the conference, as well as the educational sessions, which I will forward those after the meeting for your review, she'll more than glad make sure her team has it. We can try to really put them in the book, but she'll make sure that it's publicized throughout their social media networks and their accounts as well. I have access to a couple of higher ed groups that I can post in directly, but we talked a lot about using social media, using probably some of the past participants that might be now graduate students to help recruit as well and encourage them to present to the conference. So that's what we have talked about a little bit in terms of how we can get the word out.
Great. Joseph, do you or anyone else, do we know if there are any other regions besides 4 East that have a regional conference between now and NASPA in March?
4 East, 4 West, 1, and Western Regional. Sorry, Joseph. It's my life every day right now.
Yeah, I believe it. That's why I was like, I'll let you take over.
Yeah, so 4 East, 4 West, Western, and 1 are the big annual regional conferences that'll be happening between October 23rd and November 18th. I think it's the last day of the last conference.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's great. That's helpful. Thank you. And Joseph, what are some of you said a couple listservs. What are those specifically?
So SJTI was one, the Kuhuai listserv. There's various listservs. So NASPA, I get emails from NASPA all the time for the various KCs, knowledge communities. There's a 4 East one. I'm a part of the regional AAKC team for 4 East. They have a drive-in conference coming up in early October. So the various amount of listservs, like my grad program even has a listserv that I'm going to share too. So trying to encourage people within my network that went to different graduate programs to send it out through their graduate listserv is on the list as well.
Okay. Great. Thank you for that.
Hey, it's Kevin. Did we also list it, or are we listing it on the weekly, bi-weekly blurbs from NASPO? We did that last year, and I think it published twice, and we got definitely some hits from there as an option.
That's great.
That's a great idea. I'm not sure. I don't think the call is up yet on the website. So I think as soon as that's up, we can also then try to add it to the weekly and bi-weekly announcements as well.
Mm-hmm.
Danny, do you know if it's up yet? I tried looking for it yesterday and I couldn't find it.
I haven't gotten the notification yet, so I don't think so, but I know it's coming up soon.
Okay.
And I think, Kevin, we can also, once it's done, we can work with our marketing and communications team, because we'll be doing regular annual conference emails to see if and when they do some targeted pre-conference information that we can include for undergrad student conference.
Oh, that'd be great.
Danny, I had actually a question about that. For the weekly, bi-weekly nasty emails that we get, are those catered to members based upon their affiliations?
To an extent, yeah. We try and market some of it depending on what we get. If there is a specific group that we're able to tag, we're able to send that out. But if not, it's just kind of a little bit more generic if people don't have their profiles updated, or if there's something that just has to go to everybody.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks.
What other hits do we think we can make to make sure to get the word out?
Do we have the still access to past participants? I know last year, in the last 2 years, if we could send something to them to encourage them to forward it to other classmates or people that they know, that could also be a way, tap into the alum.
Definitely. I don't know who would have that information. I would assume someone would, but I think that's a great idea to include.
I have the past at least 3 years that I could get us. It's actually funny. Chris just joined, and Chris is actually the perfect example of that, where he was a participant turned grad student turned presenter. So, it certainly works.
It sure does.
Joseph, I'm wondering if maybe our committees can work together to also just like draft an email that has not only the flyer, but also just like a sample tweet that people can copy and paste, or like a Facebook post that, just to make things a little bit easier on the full committee. What do you think about that?
I think so. That was one of my questions for the committee when we got to that time, that we could work together. Because I plan on sending you the flyer, the committee the flyer today. And then the email is going to include at the end, let's meet together or talk on the phone to figure out verbiage for like the social media post or email blast.
Yeah, that'd be great. Let's figure, maybe me and you can chat and draft something for folks to look at, or we can just do it over email.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that shouldn't be.
I'm looking right now at my Facebook post from a year ago, and I'm seeing like this is some of the stuff that Joseph's team put together, and it pretty much gave us the flyer and then messaging information that we could just push out, so we weren't recreating it. I love that standard. I think that's helpful.
Oh, could you tag me in that?
Yeah,
I can forward you the email too, because I just sent it out to our subcommittee the other day.
Oh, perfect. From last year. That's great.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin, do you want to tag?
Yep. I can tag right now. I'm not the most savvy with social media, but I'll do it.
That's awesome. That's really helpful.
Yeah. Again, something else I think I mentioned to you all in the email. If we can, and actually Joseph and Christine as well, if we can, after this conference or during this conference, to like create a Google sheet where we're posting all of this, so we're not recreating this wheel every year, and even have a second column that has the link to the page or the contacts, if it's an email list or whatever it is, just so that we can start documenting year after year where these are going. I think that'd be helpful.
Okay, definitely.
And I think, Joseph, these were actually your posts that I was forwarding, that I think a bunch of us did that last year. You would post once on Facebook, and then we would send out to all of our different groups. So that was also helpful. For those of us who are Gen Xers still and are limited on our understanding of tags and stuff. As the oldest person on this committee.
I got you. We can do that, because that's actually in our little marketing plan too.
Raj, I'm gonna add
Great.
Is there anything that we're not thinking of at this point?
It depends on how creative we want to be, and I think we thought about in the past sending direct letters or information to senior VPs or dean of students saying if you have students. I think part of the issue that we ran into was just getting all that contact information. But part of the times they get this stuff and we have to ask them to push it down. And so I think if there's ways to do some of that, but that may just be redundant on top of all the information, membership drives that we're pushing out to. But just thinking about how we personally invite people to forward to others, I think has been something we've thought about.
Yeah.
I think what, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Viraj.
I wasn't saying anything.
Go ahead, Andrew. I'll jump in afterwards.
So there, and Danny, you probably have a contact. Is there a like aspiring AVP or VP conference coming up? I feel like I saw something like that recently. Like
It's
that would be
January, I think.
It's in January.
So it's maybe, yeah, that might not be aligned very well given the timeline for the call then.
That's a good thought.
So I know that from last year, we've had a lot of conversations about how do we engage faculty in higher ed programs a little bit more
Right.
with this conference. And I think if we can, I know that there's a listing of, program coordinators for various higher ed programs. I think if we reach out to them from a, here's the call for programs perspective and see if they have, one, if they want to present, but also two, if they have grad students that they're working with that would be good presenters or people to consider. It might be a good way to target that audience in particular.
Good.
What about also through something like, I don't know if ASH has listservs, I imagine they do, but something like that, if we know faculty who are really involved there, that might be one way to target as well.
Yeah. Ash, yeah, that makes sense.
Great.
All right.
I think that's good. Just if everyone could just help out with like helping to spread the word. I think that's really the most we can do, right? And don't be afraid to spam because it is what it is. Also, because like social media metrics work differently. So if like we're posting more and more, then it's more likely to show up on people's feeds. So we just got to make sure that folks get a chance to see it too. So yeah, thanks everyone for your help.
I just forwarded you some stuff, you and Jimmy specifically, because that's who I had quickly in Facebook in your messenger, where Joseph started the registration is open, and then he would do reminders like every couple of weeks, 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out.
Mm-hmm.
You should have that type of stuff.
And I'll just forward you an email to Viraj.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Viraj and or Andrew, can you all just go walk the full committee through your timeline real quickly?
Yeah, Viraj, do you have that more quickly accessible?
I can pull it up from the last minutes. 1 second. So our ideal timeline was that the application would be due October 15th, but I think we might have to revisit it based on the status of the application. So I think once the app is up, we might need to revisit the deadline. But ideally, we're hoping for October 15th, and then with an option to extend until the 22nd. And then we're hoping to send out notifications in early November, definitely by Thanksgiving, so folks know prior to Thanksgiving, just, to help make booking flights and things like that a little bit easier. We're looking at a mid-October. Mid to October deadline.
Danny, can you talk a little bit to the program's kind of general trend timeline of traditionally always get last minute ones, or with this one, with it being on the heels of the annual conference, should we expect bigger number at the very beginning, or do you have any thoughts on the timeline in general?
I'd like to say that call for programs follow a trend, but they normally don't. It's really dependent on what and where people pick up on it. So I think to the piece that Joseph and everybody else is bringing up of like the listservs and how you're getting it out to people, that's what makes the biggest impact, is how many different avenues you're getting it out. And I've seen a lot more success when you do direct invitations. So sending it out to previous attendees so that they could apply and submit, or sending it out to people saying, hey, I know you would be great for this. I would like for you to apply. I think the one piece I will say to the experience I've seen across the board on any regional conferences, much like the students that we work with, professionals will wait till the last minute. So there will be some people that would submit it and say, oh, okay, I got it in early. This is exciting, maybe because they need to present in order to be able to attend. But most people are going to get it pretty close to the end of the deadline.
Thanks. Jasmine, do you want to talk about GroupMess?
Yeah, can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. So GroupMes. So a lot of times there's GroupMes that are associated with the Facebook pages. So like I'm like in a Deltas in higher ed, grad, even though I'm not a grad student anymore. This is 30, that's so funny. A lot of the Facebook groups are associated on GroupMes, and people, you know, either lean into Facebook or lean into GroupMe, or neither or both. So that might be a good avenue too, to put like a little quick blurb with a link to say, hey, apply now for this cool opportunity. I'm in a lot of them, which I avoid GroupMe and I mute them all, but it might look different for different people.
I didn't even know that there were GroupMes like associated with Facebook groups. This is like brand new information. If there's, I mean, I don't want to like ask you to take them all on though, Jasmine. Is there, if there's a way to like add me to appropriate ones, I'm happy to help out with that too. Or maybe if other folks are affiliated with them. There's no like lists, I'm guessing?
No, but we could probably create one just like, because it's, if you're in it, that's the only way you can post. So maybe we can create a cache of them. I mean, I'm in like at least 10 that are higher ed related, and most of them are like either Black student grads or like that, but or just my program or things like that. But we can probably create a cache of them. That would be helpful.
Okay.
What avenues that we can cross check?
Yeah. I think that's I mean, not to sound like an old lady, but that's like a great way to reach younger folks, right? I think this is like clearly a generational organizing thing that I'm like, what? Like I've totally missed the boat on this. So it's really great to know that that's out there. Maybe we'll include language about that maybe in our, like the template that we're sending out too.
Hey, old lady, listen here, okay?
All right, so we'll follow up with Colleen then to see when that's live, and then Viraj and Andrew, if you want to just communicate to the larger committee, once you have more information, we can take it from there. I know we're not in this order, but since it's kind of along the same lines, let's talk a little bit about marketing. Christine and Joseph, do you want to talk a little bit about where you're at with marketing in general and what your thoughts are?
Perfect. So I can start. So right now we are in the final stages of preparing a couple of flyers for the committee and NASPA to review. So we have 3 flyers that's going to be specifically about the conference and registration. And we have a flyer that's specifically geared towards the educational sessions. So we're in the process of making a few changes. Jason's in the process of getting ready for his dissertation. So once he's going to make those minor changes, I will send it on to the committee and NASPA for review. Hopefully that we can quickly have them approved and everything by Monday, so that we can, when registration and a call for proposals are launched, we can use those flyers to basically assist with promoting the conference as well as the educational sessions. During our conversation, there was a conversation about creating text for the various aspects of registration being open. So that will be something that our subcommittee will work on and share that with everyone to assist us with recruiting people to register for the conference. And now me and Viraj will meet on the side to work on text for the educational sessions in particular. So once we get that, we're going to be ready to hit the ground running, try our best to promote the conference at least 2 to 3 times a week. In terms of the educational sessions, probably every other day, making sure that we're posting it on social media. I just looked at my group meets as well. I'm a part of at least 10, like Jasmine said, higher ed group meets, so making sure that's promoted in there. There's some emails drafted out to my graduate program, some other people that I know that's in grad school or colleagues here in Minnesota or at my previous institutions that I plan on leaning on for support to recruit for the conference and the call for programs. So that is literally where we're at right now. It's just getting everything ready for next week.
Cool. I just sent everybody the short link for the conference. So just a bit.ly NASPA US 19. That should go right on the homepage. That will be updated soon.
Okay.
Anything else for marketing?
So I would say in terms of the question that we had is a very similar question to what the educational sessions has asked. If everyone can help us within your various networks push the conference and the call for programs out to as many networks and people as possible. So that's really the ask that we have of everyone on the committee, is to push it out as much as possible within your various networks.
Cool. Christine or Joseph, can either of you talk about your plans with engaging past participants with the marketing?
I can do that because I'm in the process. I just finished talking to one now. So in November, late November, hopefully, that we're going to start having past participants basically send like 1 to 2 minute videos about their experiences at the conference and what they're doing now and how the conference played an impact or may help them make a decision about going into student affairs. So this was a conversation that started like right after the conference. How can we engage and use the experiences of past participants to basically promote the conference to the future generation of student affairs? So I talked to my student group, my little small group already. All of them are down to do the video, but they just said right now it's a busy time for them. Most of them are just starting graduate school. But if they come out mid-October, we can get you a video that you can use for social media, probably Facebook and Instagram for sure, and Twitter if needed.
Great, thank you. Mm-hmm. I know as I'm looking at everybody's screen, I think like 4 or 5 people were small group facilitators last year and may still have those connections. So if you need more, I think that there's plenty of folks on the conference committee that can help get some more maybe.
Perfect. I will probably send out a call probably in the next 2 weeks or so to everyone that they can share with their groups.
Great. Danny, I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you know if NASPA is doing anything in particular for October 1st with Careers and Student Affairs Month that we might be able to jump on?
So Colleen's running that. We do have a full month of programming that happens throughout October. I'll have her send out to everybody what the schedule is going to be and see if I'm sure there's definitely places where we can loop in and advertise and market throughout the whole month.
Great, thank you. Cool. Anything else on marketing?
I believe that is it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Joseph and Christine.
Good job.
Jasmine, I don't want to put you on the spot. Can you talk at all about pre-conference survey that you and Heather have maybe been working on?
So I don't have much right now, but from the last time we spoke, we were just thinking about what are some things that we want to know like prior to going into the conference, but then we can also put some of those same questions on the post survey. But I don't have a lot of content for it as of now.
Okay. Thanks. So let me, sorry, I realized that I didn't share context with everybody. So the way that registration for the undergrad student conference is going to work, it's going to be tied to the annual conference registration. So we want to try to limit how many additional questions we're asking folks through the NASPA portal that registration is going to be centered in. So what we decided is that it probably makes more sense for us to develop a separate questionnaire is it Campus Labs or Qualtrics, Danny?
Campus Labs.
Thank you. Sorry, I keep saying the wrong one. For us to develop a separate questionnaire in Campus Labs that NASPA will send out to people as they register for the undergrad student conference, maybe on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. And that can include questions that get at our outcomes, and also anything else that we think might be helpful in the pre-planning stages. And part of that is so that when we do our post-conference survey, we also have that housed in Campus Labs as well. And it's not going between two different databases to get pre and post data. The one downfall to this that we have to consider is for students who register on site or very close to the actual conference in March, we may not get pre's from them. So we just want to make sure that we get that either at registration or be mindful that we might not get that data over there. So. Any questions about that? I think that the only question that we've talked about adding into the actual NASPA portal is, have you attended the undergrad student conference in the past? But everything else we'll make sure is outside of that. Are there any other questions that you think outside of outcomes-based questions that should be asked or would be helpful for any of the 4 subcommittees to know prior to the conference for your planning?
Is that for me?
Sorry, this is for anybody.
Oh.
Okay.
Would the pre-survey be like the right time to ask about like dietary needs or like other ability needs?
That should be in the application. Yes, no, I don't remember.
Yeah, I actually think that should be pulled automatically from member profiles when they register for the general conference, so we should be able to get that.
Okay.
Perfect.
Christian and Amber, this actually just crossed my mind, but I know we talked a little bit about affinity groups, and maybe this is Vera as well. But that pre-survey may be a chance for us to think about, if you were to attend an affinity, or if you were to participate, which one would you participate in, just so that we make sure we have facilitators for whatever those identities might be. But we can think about that later on down the line as well. Anything for Christian and Amber with small groups?
Yeah, so first off, I know that we have been in a little bit more of a holding pattern just because we were waiting to see how the Ed Sessions proposal process would shake out and what that timeline looks like. We're going to meet next week. I have a email drafted to the 2 of my wonderful subcommittee members to chat next week, because now we have more of a timeline and we have to create an application. So our goal is to have a new small group facilitator app by late October. And so based off of the way that the Ed Session proposal stuff should go, it should kind of overlap. If everything goes well and nothing changes with the current timeline, it would be overlapping by about a week. And so I'm hoping to have a final draft of that by or before the 26th of October. And then the application period would start the following week, so that we could send out along with acceptances for presenters or denials for presenters, that additional opportunity for them to get involved with the conference. And then the application period would kind of stay open until mid-November, and an initial notification wave, depending on how many applications we get, would go out between the 28th and 30th of November, so right after Thanksgiving. And if there are changes in the Ed Sessions timeline, then that notification would follow pretty much the Ed Sessions notification as well. So yeah, we're trying to recruit anywhere from between 15 to 18 facilitators, so that based off of typical numbers, we have between 10 to 12 students per group, with a mini goal of increasing our diversity in both experience and background to make sure that a wide variety of different realities are represented in the small group facilitation group. And so initial questions that I had that we can take suggestions about to our committee once we chat over the next week or two is what should we be asking potential facilitators on a separate application, so that we can kind of take that and use that as we start building that application from the ground up. You can also ask clarifying questions about the dates and like all of those plans too.
I think that the why is important, right? Of what are you hoping to get out of this? I think one thing for us to consider, and we've gotten consistent feedback on with the small group facilitator selection, is that in the grand scheme of things, it's really only 3 hours, that they're really 3 or 4 hours that folks are flying in 2 days before an annual conference to, have these 4-hour conversations with students, so what are they getting out of it? And more often than not, people are there for something else already, and we hope that that's a case that's convenient for them. But I think just a general, why do you want to do this, will be helpful for you in selecting folks. Before I forget, Christian, one other thing that I want to mention is when I talk to a lot of the subcommittee members and the full committee members here, prior to everything kicking off and finalizing the committee, I know a lot of people expressed interest in serving as small group facilitators. So if you're on the committee and you don't anticipate having a lot of responsibilities on site, and we're happy to talk a little bit more about that kind of as we get closer, you should definitely consider serving as a small group facilitator. It's really great time to have that interaction with students. The other thing is it might be good to connect with Cynthia sooner rather than later to see, are there folks at USC, whether they're grad students or other staff that may not be engaged with NASPA in any other ways. This is a really good way to experience the undergrad student conference, and it's convenient since they're already on site. Technically, everybody should be registered for the annual conference if they're participating in this capacity, but hopefully that helps a little bit with folks being in LA already.
Yeah, definitely. And I knew that I wanted to go for a balance between folks that are local to LA or maybe at USC and folks that are coming from other places, so that if for some reason we had issues where folks that initially expressed interest and were selected to be a small group facilitator had to back out, then the folks that are local to LA may be able to identify other people that we can onboard pretty quickly and not have to worry too much about the travel logistics as much as we would have to about getting them looped in info-wise about what the responsibilities of that role are.
Great. Let's leave it open in the meeting minutes, and if folks have any additional feedback, you can send those along.
Sure, of course. And then the other things that I was thinking about regarding like outreach, a lot of the conversation that we've had around outreach regarding ed sessions still kind of apply here. I was thinking though that marketing the small group opportunity to grad programs specifically may help grad students make a case for getting funding to attend the annual conference, because they'll have another reason to gain experience in a tangible way working with undergraduate students and having those conversations. And then it would make it more likely for them to be able to stay for the annual conference. Just so being able to just put it on the radar of the grad programs and marketing it as an opportunity for their students to get involved, I think would be a priority for our group. And then a project that Amber is working on and leading is working on a facilitation guide. So basically putting together a set of resources that we could send out in advance and also have hard copies of on site regarding frequently asked questions about facilitation, kind of a recap of the expected logistics for that time, some icebreakers to do with the group, all of that stuff. So Amber, I didn't know whether or not you wanted to take over and kind of share your vision for what this guide may look like.
Yes. So I don't really have an idea of what it would entail or where to start with it, but just thinking about last year, we were provided some documents here and there, but we would prefer, we think it would be good if we gave everybody something like just right when they got there for the 2 days of mapping out like how it's supposed to be, what are the expectations, a Q&A kind of thing of like, if your student is a second year senior and they're thinking about this, like what are some resources you can provide to them? If they're a first year at the USC and they haven't experienced this yet and they're new to higher ed, like what resources can you provide to them? What are just some icebreakers that you could do with them too? Questions and answers of things that we wish we knew as professionals that we're able to share with them. And some of these things could be handouts that are given to the students too, to take away with, because I think we had a lot of good conversations and they were in a lot of sessions, but for them there weren't takeaways. And I think the small group facilitators, if we provide all that with them, they would be able to take that. So I'm definitely open to suggestions of what you guys think that would be good for this, and I'll put that together as a packet. But right now, I think we don't have a vision for it. It's just anything that we think would be useful for the facilitators to be prepared, but also for the students to walk away with something as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it sounds great.
Amber, Christian, and Chris, I think I just made a note to myself to dedicate one of our future conference calls where you can spend a lot of time thinking this through with the full committee. As Christian said, you all are in a bit of a holding pattern, not knowing what the rest of the content for the conference is, but hopefully by the time we meet next time, we have a better sense of what ed sessions might be. We may even start talking a little bit more about keynotes and what messages are takeaways there, to better structure the small group conversation a little bit.
Hey, Jimmy, quick question. Do they have access to the past 2 or 3 years worth of talking points that we did provide for those groups? That may just give them a foundation, or, hey, that we don't like that, we can move in a different direction, but something.
Yeah, so you all should definitely peruse the Google Drive where everything is. For small groups in particular, I'm going to direct you all to Viraj because she very much so spearheaded those efforts last year, and has a lot of context for that. But why don't you all start with the Google Drive first, and I'll also take a look through it to see if everything's in there. But because I think a lot of that was communicated via email, Kevin, now that I think about that. So I'll make sure that that's in there.
You're right. I can dig some of that up if we need to as well.
I can too.
That's right. You've been around for a while too.
Last year's guide is in the Google Drive. And yeah, happy to answer any questions, I think.
Great.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Thank you all for the great work y'all doing. Any other subcommittee updates? Okay. Thank you all again. I know it's been 2 months, and whether that feels like it's been a long time or a little time, you all have done tremendous work in the past two months. So I really appreciate everything that everybody's doing, and will continue to do. So, Danny, can I turn it over to you to walk through a project management tool that we're hoping that the committee can use going forward?
Yep. So if everybody, I guess I can share my screen so it's easiest. And for anybody that is not on video or on the computer, in the notes that Raj sent, we have the link to access this. So here is our project management tool that we've been using. So just a quick recap, the way that this works is there are different phases starting here on the left. The phase right now, obviously, that we're in is planning. After that, we'll go into execution, analysis, and reporting. And the way that we've broken this out is within each phase, there are buckets. So our buckets are different committee planning and subcommittee roles. and then within each bucket, there's a task. So we'll name the task, put an update on where we're at. So you'll see in the most recent update usually gets bolded. And the way this works is it's easy for people to be able to walk in and see or click into this and see, all right, so our update June 22nd was communication from Jimmy. July 5th, we had outreach, and then July 16th, committee applications closed. We backtracked a little bit of this so that you all could see what it would look like to fill this out. Within each area, we then have what's called RACI, so responsible, accountable, consultant, and informed as you fill this out. So the person responsible is the one that's doing the work. So Colleen was responsible for getting with Jimmy and the communication out. The person accountable is the one, if the work doesn't get done, basically they're the ones that get in trouble. So knowing that Colleen was responsible for this, really it was Jimmy that was accountable for it to get done, because if it didn't go out, we wouldn't have a committee as awesome as you all are. Consulted is the person who doesn't necessarily have to do any work, but might be able to provide some insight. So I talked to Colleen and Jimmy about some of the previous processes that we've had. And then informed is letting us all know where we're at. This all can be for the full committee, it can be anyone else. So this included on our end, letting Nathan know where we were at, just thinking through that. Within each one of these tasks, you'll scroll to the right and you'll see we have all of the dates listed per month, broken out into different weeks. So then you'll see, all right, so July 2018, week 3, we had the applications were due, and then within each cell are the actual dates. So what's helpful about color coding and then having the text on here is by color coding on a quick glance, you can see where things are at. And then when you look at it individually, you're able to see the actual dates within that week as needed. So this tool is open, and Jimmy will help assign people and let people know what to fill out. But you'll see on here as we start to fill in information, it helps everybody to be able to see where we are at, what project we're working on, who is in charge of it, and then what the timeline is for anything that's coming up. Any general questions on this tool? It's a new tool for us. It's something that I've used in non-NASPA work, has been really successful for planning large-scale events. So it's something we figured we would try with you all. And then I know in the conversations I've heard for the past few years, and not just at undergrad student conference, but in other events, we don't always have such a clear timeline, so that next year's group can just come in here and read all of this and go, oh, okay, great, and then update it based on the things that they need.
Thanks, Danny. So we talked this through with the leadership team last week, and hoping that you all can work with your subcommittees and get us a sense of what your timelines might be. This is really so that at any point, any of us can go into this document, which is shared in our Google Drive, and see where we're at. So one, it's helpful for our team as we're planning this year's conference, but more importantly, it's going to be helpful for future conference planning committees to be able to just get this document. You all have been doing tremendous work with setting timelines and deadlines with the work that you're doing. So we want to make sure that that's passed down, and it takes a lot of work off of future planning committees. So if you all want to work as subcommittees, work through your leads, send some tasks, and we'll populate that and make sure that that stays updated.
And if you have questions about how to fill it out, feel free to shoot me an email. I'm happy to talk through with it. Jimmy and I have looked at it, and Colleen is also aware of it. So we're happy to say how and where to put information, because it's new. We can also make adjustments to, if you're like, hey, this doesn't make sense in how it's written out for me, I'd like to be different, we can do that as well.
Thanks. Any questions about that, or any other general questions? Cool. So I think that's it. I know I said that we'd connect again as a full committee sometime in early November, timed around the time of the launch for the small group application, but also the wrapping up of the Ed Sessions call for programs. As with always, feel free to reach out via the email list or to anybody individually if you have any questions. But we can leave it at that if there's nothing else. No? Great. thank you all for spending time today, and enjoy the rest of your weeks.
Yay.
Thank
Wow.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Carry on.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.